Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. And my guest today is a familiar face to me and many people that live in the Kalamazoo area. This is Taylor Sexton, and she's been involved in racing for quite a while. But I wanted to have her on because she's doing some pretty amazing things. And I sometimes, Taylor, the people that are right in front of me, I forget to even talk to. So I wanted to make sure we got you on the show. So welcome to the show today. And why don't you start by sharing a little bit about yourself so the people that don't know you can learn a little bit more about you.
All right, so my name is Taylor. I race out at Kalamazoo Speedway. I've been racing a little bit at Springport, not as much as I like to. I've raced at Galesburg Speedway before, M40 once or twice. I help with the mini wedge programs around in the area now, so that's been fun. On the side of racing, I do a little bit of embroidery work. That's something I've recently really started to try to get my name out with. Other than that, we're always busy racing, so.
Yeah, that's for sure. You come from a racing family.
Yes, I
Why
do.
don't you talk about that just a little bit?
So my dad and my aunt started the racing deal for our family probably in the 90s, I want to say. They were big names out at Kalamazoo Speedway in the late model divisions, the modifieds, and then I came along and I was at the racetrack. I was born in November, and the next April I was at the racetrack. I think there was only 1 or 2 years that I was not at the big track. And then we were at the little track, Little Kalamazoo Speedway, racing quarter midgets. And then I was only able to do about 3-4 years in that, and then I reached the age limit. At the time, you had to be 16 to race at the big track. So as soon as I turned 16, the next April, I was in a front-wheel drive, thanks to the Snyder family, because we had some fun in the winter in a front-wheel drive. And then I was racing front-wheel drives for a year, and then I moved to the street stocks for, I think it was 4 or 5 years, and now I'm driving a template late model.
Right. And you have a brother that races as well.
Yes, he started when he was 4 in the quarter midgets, and then he retired quarter midgets, I think, when he was 13 or 14. He did. His first year in a big car was COVID year, so he didn't really get to race out a whole lot.
Yeah.
One day they let him in my street stock, and then next thing I knew, we were racing street stocks together for a year, and I said, I don't like it. I don't like it's fun, but it's a lot of pressure because I always felt like I had to beat him. So that's when I moved up, and he's still in the street stock class doing pretty good.
Yeah, he does really well in the street stock class, and you do very well, and you always have in all the classes you've raced. I knew you when you started. You were in quarter midgets, and I've kind of watched you progress, and you're always one that's going to be competitive when she's out there on the track. That's for sure. So, Taylor, what's the most, what's your favorite thing, I guess, about racing?
Um,
why do you do that every weekend instead of your embroidery?
yeah. So I want to say it's a good family thing that we do all together. I guess it's always been I don't know, we've always been at the racetrack. We don't know anything different than racing. So it's just
Hmm.
our way of doing life, I guess you could say. Um, but lately, I think my favorite thing is watching these younger kids start at the beginning of the season and then definitely towards the end of the season. There's so much growth, and it's just awesome to see.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit because, though that's kind of a newer thing here at the Kalamazoo Speedway, and then I'm not sure exactly where else they race. I am going to be interviewing a couple of those girls here not too long, but why don't you tell us about that? How did it get started? How did you get involved?
Yeah, so I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Ryan Warning actually started the mini wedge deal out at Kalamazoo Speedway. And then I think it was either Ryan or Gary. They were like, "Hey, you know some stuff about, the I guess you could say kart racing, because we came from the little track, so they just threw me into the wolves. Um, I got to shadow Ryan for a few years, and then unfortunately, he had an amazing opportunity come up, and he moved to Florida, and it was kind of like, it's yours now, have fun. Um, so I'm very grateful I got to learn from Ryan with everything. And then I just got thrown into it, and it's kind of been my thing. The first year it was pretty cool. It was a very big learning curve for me, because it's like I want to coach all the kids, but at the same time you're there to make sure that they're following all the rules. Um, my biggest thing is I always like to help. So that's my
Hmm.
biggest thing. I want to make sure that they're learning how to race the correct way and not just slamming into different cars.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing. Um, for a few years, there are other people that kind of ran the program at Kalamazoo, so I navigated to the Great Lakes Mini Wedge Series, and we were
Hmm.
racing. We had a few races out at Hartford Speedway. Um, we did a lot at Springport. This past year, they really redid that track, and it was amazing. It's just awesome to see how far that all of it's coming. This past season, I was asked to come back halfway through the season with the kids at Kalamazoo. So I've kind of had to pick up and help the program a little bit. I had to learn new faces that had come in when I was gone. And then I had my kids that were like 4 or 5 years old, and now they're 8 or 9,
Hmm.
and it's just amazing.
Yeah. And watching those kids, does it remind you of when you were young and raced quarter midgets and then you had mentors that helped you?
Yes, absolutely. It definitely brings back the quarter midget days. It's hard because there is a split between, the quarter midgets and the mini wedges. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, over the time, the mini wedges are just kind of um, less expensive to get into. Um, but it's like, it's hard because when I first started, I felt like I almost got a lot of heat for going over to the mini wedges instead of the quarter midgets.
Hmm.
Um, my heart is always going to be at that little track. That's where I started, and
Yeah.
that's where I learned. Um, but I look at it, it's for the kids,
Yeah.
and we want to get them in any way that we can. Um,
Exactly.
they're going to be the next future racers that
Yeah.
come to big tracks. So that's definitely been really, really hard. That's probably the biggest challenge that I've had is going
Okay.
from the quarter midgets, just because I kind of felt like I was betraying everybody at the little track going to the
Yeah.
mini wedges. But um, I've definitely had to learn like it's definitely for the kids, and that's why
Yeah.
we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And nobody should judge your choices because sometimes sometimes the choices are kind of just laid out in front of us and it's like it's so obvious that this is where you need to be. And like you said, your heart will always be at that little track because, little Taylor Sexton started there. And it's right next to the big track where you race. So it's not that you're not loyal to them, not at all. But there's a lot of choices in life, and this is one you felt you had to make, and you're helping a lot of kids, and that's the bottom line. Like you said, we've got to get kids interested in racing, no matter their age or what division. There is so many kids that race dragsters, junior dragsters. They race a little motocross or motorcycles. Wherever you can help and get kids interested, that's where you need to be for sure. Yeah. I love that you're doing that because Taylor, you're giving back. People gave to you and now you're giving back and you're still young. How old are you, Taylor?
I just turned 24.
Okay, I was going to say 23, I was guessing. And so, you're still young and yet you're giving a lot of good knowledge and encouragement back to those kids for sure. So, whether it's mini wedges or you're racing, how has being a girl involved in motorsports, has it been hard? I mean, I know you have a brother, so that probably helps some. Have you had any difficulties? And let's be honest, it's usually the older guys that have more problems with women on the track than it is the younger ones. But how have you dealt with that, or did you ever have an issue?
Oh yeah. When I first started out at Galesburg Speedway, I was not good my first few years. With my dad, with us like learning everything, my dad definitely had the street stock set up like it was a late model, so that was definitely challenging. But then we had Tim Bullis come aboard and start helping us, which definitely helped us tremendously, and I can't thank him enough for everything that he's done for us. Um, but for a while, like there was a time where not a lot of girls were in the street stocks in the higher up classes. And then I started kind of figuring everything out, and there was a lot of times where I got called names that I should not have been called at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's definitely eye opening. Going into racing, I knew it was going to be a challenge just because I had watched Michelle growing up with Ben and Bubba and all them, and so I knew it was going to be challenging. Um, but I always had this thing like I did not want any pink, I did not want any purple on my car. I wanted it to like kind of look like I wasn't a girl. Because I wanted to get out of my car and be like, okay, well, you just got beat by a girl.
Yes, exactly.
Um, so for the longest time, I did not have any pink and I didn't have any purple on my cars. And then I kind of changed that a little bit. Now it's kind of like I don't want them to treat me with any differences. Like I want to
Mm-hmm.
be treated the same.
Yep.
Um, so like I definitely feel like I have more pressure on myself now because I am a girl, and I feel like um going into Friday nights, like I get myself very worked up because I want to do good, and I'm not gonna lie, I cannot qualify for my life. Um,
You're not the only one. There's NASCAR drivers that have the same problem. So,
yes, so like I beat myself up so bad because like I always try to be on the left side of the board, but sometimes most of the time I end up on like 11th or 12th in qualifying.
hmm
Um, Sometimes that's a good thing because it puts you out front, but sometimes it's just like, I don't know. I remember like one time racing front wheel drives. I was like pretty slow in qualifying, so I was really mad. So I threw my helmet and I learned my lesson because I broke my visor on my helmet.
oh
So I
dear.
had to go buy a new one. Uh, but I definitely beat myself up, and now I will sit in my trailer. A lot of people think that I'm mean at the racetrack, but
Oh,
I promise it's just my face because I'm so upset with myself because I didn't do good in qualifying. So it just kind of it's like, okay, well, I need to do better. So then in the heat races, obviously my class, we did not get, I think we raced heat races once or twice, and it's
yeah.
kind of, well, for me, I only raced one because this year was an absolute hectic year. But those heat races, I kind of really look forward to them because
Hmm.
sometimes, like that is going to be your race to actually try. Um, Especially kind of when you don't like when you're not one of the top runners, that's definitely a race that you look kind of forward to, I guess.
Yes.
But lately I've been really trying to learn how to do setup on my car. I've been trying to learn, like, okay, well, if the car is doing this, I need to tell them what to change. And that's definitely helped a lot because I'll be able to come in from qualifying and be like, okay, well, the car is absolutely horrible. And then we make the changes and we're really good in our feature.
Yeah.
Thankfully, this year, the features I was able to run, I was able to pull off some really good finishes, and that's really boosted my confidence up a lot. I kept telling myself, I just want to win. I don't care what it is. I just want one win, and I will be happy, and I will be done. Obviously, now I've got that win. Wasn't an A feature, but we'll get there this year.
Yeah. And no, people don't think you're mean. So I don't, I think you just think that because
Probably.
I haven't ever heard anybody say they thought you were mean. But, you know, you're serious about it. And there's a difference between being mean and being serious about it. So when you have issues like that, so who helps you with the car? I'm pretty sure your dad probably, but like if you come in from qualifying, you say this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. Do you get out and help? Who fixes it or who makes the changes?
A lot of the time, it's my dad or my brother Alex. Alex is really picking up on a lot of things. So even he'll watch me on the track and be like, "Nope, we got to change that. This is what it's doing." And so I'm thankful he's able to do that. But I try to step in as much as I can. I don't know a whole lot about stuff, but I am learning. That was my biggest thing last year is I want to learn. So I was able to learn quite a bit that I had no clue how to do. Um, I think last year I had to pull my motor out 3 or 4 times, and I was
Mm.
able to do it basically pretty much by myself. I had to have Alex's assistance for like a few things. Um, but I was able to do that by myself. Putting it back in, I was able to get everything kind of hooked up where it needed to go. But definitely, Alex does. I have to give him a lot of credit because he does a lot of stuff on my race car for me.
Well, that's good. And now that you're not competing against each other, it's easier for him to help, right?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Because normally, I mean, a lot of the times it's just us three in the pits. We don't really get a lot of help. Alex's friends will come and help, but sometimes they're not there. So it's literally I'm the one helping on his car when he's pulling in during
Yeah.
qualifying sessions, and then it switches. Like, I'm always probably one of the last ones to get in line for qualifying because I'm always making sure that I'm not getting in my car until he's absolutely done with his qualifying session, and then he does the
Yeah.
same for me. So it's always back and forth helping each other.
Well, and that's really good. And honestly, Taylor, I don't hear that very often. I mean, there are brothers and sisters that race, at the same track and sometimes against each other or whatever. But I don't really hear that a whole lot where, you basically have each other's back. And a lot of times that's not the case. Excuse me. So that tells me a lot about your relationship with your brother. Is he a couple years younger than you?
Yeah, I think he's turning 18, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So there's quite a bit of an age
4 or
gap,
5 years
but
difference then.
I'll
Okay.
tell you, I'm a big sister bear and I'm going to do anything I can to protect him. And I know it's the same thing coming towards me. So,
Yeah. That's great. I love that. I love that. And that's kind of how we feel about our race family too, isn't it?
oh,
You
yeah.
know, you're going to be competitive when you get out there, but when you come in the pits, anybody that needs help, you guys are usually there to help. I know that for sure,
Yeah.
just from being around your family. So, it's the off season. What are you doing in the off season? And we kind of make fun of
Um,
that, really, don't we? It's really there really is never an off season, but we're not at the track every weekend. So, what keeps you busy right now?
Right now it's a lot of my embroidery stuff. I've been thankful enough to all the championship jackets in the area. I was able to do those this year. That's pretty amazing that people
Yeah.
came to me for that stuff. It's actually it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that a lot. I work till 5 o'clock. I get home, and then from like 6 to 10, I'm down here working on stuff.
Hmm.
And then other than that, we're just starting to do all of our stuff for this upcoming year on the race cars, going through them, updating, and so that's going to start ramping up every weekend here. So
Yeah, it won't be, it seems like a long time away when you look outside and there's snow on the ground and it's, I don't know what the temperature was today, but the lows are in the tens and 15 degrees. But really, it's going to be here before we know it. And when you work a job and then you're doing the embroidery, you only have so much time, right? I've
absolutely.
seen some of your embroidery. My granddaughter has. I think it's a jacket that you did. Amazing work. So before we get off that subject, how would people get a hold of you if they wanted something embroidered? Because I know you can do custom designs and everything. So
Yeah.
how would they find you?
Right now, all I do is Facebook. And my Facebook page is Fastway Creations. Um, but mainly right now,
Okay.
that's all I'm doing. I'm gonna start trying to push
Okay.
that a little bit harder, but
Yeah, but it's word of mouth, and you're a racer, and so people are going to be like, "Hey, where'd you get that done?" Oh, Taylor Sexton, and that's pretty much what you need. So that
yeah.
goes well, and hopefully it keeps growing for you because that seems like that's kind of your passion because you're very creative and it gives you that outlet, doesn't it, for doing the embroidery.
It sure does.
So when you have a bad night at the track, and let's face it, we all do, what do how do you overcome that? I don't think you're probably a crier, just knowing you, and I could be wrong, but what happens when you come in off the track, something's happened, it hasn't been a good night, what do you do?
Well, I'm gonna definitely tell you I cry.
Okay.
Um, especially this season. It was definitely a heck of a season. It was very frustrating. I was really ready to give up this season. Because it was just one thing after another. Um, but after those bad nights, we always unload our cars Saturday morning, and we're right out there trying to figure out the issue. It was very challenging. So it was just getting
was
it
it
into my head to reset.
was it more issues with the actual car, issues with the drivers on the track? Was it a combination of things? Kind of what were so many more challenges this year? Because normally you don't have that many challenges.
It was definitely with the car. Um, I had motor issues at the beginning of the season. Um, and I tried to learn and I tried to figure out why we were having these issues. I called people to try to get answers, and I didn't really get where I needed to. So unfortunately, I blew up my motor. And then we ended up buying another one. So I had that one out. The next day, we went and got the new one, put it in, and unfortunately, that motor had issues when we went and bought it, that nobody really knew about. So it was nobody's fault, but basically the motors.
Hmm.
So then I had to get that one rebuilt, and that put me out for a few weeks. Thankfully, my motor builder, Al McLaughlin, was really quick to get that one for me. The Clash is a big race, that we all know about. That's one that I had looked forward to every single year, because that was one that obviously my dad had won back in the day. So I just think it's amazing that I get to race one of the races that my dad raced back in the day.
Yeah.
Um, so I ended up getting the motor back for that race. And then unfortunately, we had more issues with the car, and my car caught on fire after
Oh gosh.
practice. And that was kind of like the moment, like, I got out of my car laughing, because I was just over everything.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, how can you be laughing right now? And I was like, because this was literally the cherry on the top of
Yeah.
my season. After that, we definitely had a few weeks off after that one. And we just regrouped in the shop, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this one or two more tries. And if it doesn't get better, I think that's my call, that this season is just one that we learn from and move on. So it's definitely like, I did feel like a few times when I was on the racetrack, I was just used as like a pinball. And I know that happens all the time, but being a female in the um, racing world, sometimes I almost feel like they think that I'm not going to put back a fight.
Right.
This year I definitely learned that you have to put back that fight. You can't
Yep.
just let them push you around.
Exactly.
Um, a lot of the years, you can ask anybody. They're going to tell you me and Alex are not aggressive drivers.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how we are raised. We're raised to not hit people. My mom always told us if me and Alex laid a fender on each other, if we were wrecking each other, both of our cars were going to be parked. Um, I personally don't like hitting people to
Mm-hmm.
get around them. I think you should be able to pass people cleanly. And there are a few times that people definitely need to learn how to race people
Yes.
cleanly in my class.
Every
So
class.
that's,
Every
yes,
class.
that's,
It's just you're aware of the class you're in, but it's more than
it's,
just you, Taylor.
yes.
Yeah.
So that's another frustrating thing. And I finally learned like I'm going to have to be more aggressive than what I am being,
Mm-hmm.
because if not, they're just going to continue to push me around.
Right. And I hear that from a lot of girls and women that I interview that, they don't want to be that kind of a driver. And that's not, they're out there to have fun, to be successful, to do their best. And then when you've got, I'm sorry, idiots who just think that, the only way to win is to shove everybody else out of the way and wreck them. And racetracks have gotten better, I think, about not putting up with that, but it still happens, and it is frustrating. I can remember my grand McKenna, my granddaughter at Galesburg, early on in her career. It was 4th of July, and an older man
Yes.
decided that he didn't want to get beat by that 16-year-old girl, and he shoved her in the fence and ruined her car. And it's like, come on, um, let's not be doing that. This is, first of all, this is not NASCAR Cup division. We're not winning millions of dollars. And so you get beat by a girl one night. So come back and try to beat her the next time. But it happens all the time. And of course you and I are familiar with the local tracks and the things that happen. But it's all over, Taylor. It's not just here. And I know that is frustrating, but you do have to stand up for yourself because nobody else is going to. And once you put that helmet on, you're a race car driver. You're not a girl, you're not a guy, you're not 16, you're not 66, you're a race car driver. And so those are the things that, you unfortunately, you sometimes only takes one or two times. And they're like, okay, she's somebody we don't want to mess with anymore. We'll pick on somebody else. Yeah, for sure. So, you're already making an impact on motorsports because of being a girl in our local area, and then now helping with the younger kids. So is that something, when you're done racing, 40 years from now or whenever that is, what do you want people to remember about Taylor Sexton?
I just want them to know that like I never really gave up. I was always trying my hardest. Um, I want them to know that those kids mean everything to me, and they still are gonna mean everything to me. I call
Mhm.
them my kids because they are my
Yeah.
they're my race kids. I always find it awesome when you're out in public and they come running up to you and they're like, Taylor. So I just want people to remember me like that. Like I
Yeah.
was there for the kids.
It's kind of like being a teacher at school. And
Mm.
kids have certain teachers they love, and that same thing happens. My daughter was a teacher, and even still to this day, even though she hasn't taught for a long time, she still gets kids who've grown up who see her, and that's a good thing, and that'll happen to you too through the racing. So do you have a favorite memory? It could be good or bad. A favorite memory from your racing?
Um, Definitely there's two. One would be watching my dad win the Clash. That was pretty amazing. And then the other one is just this year, even though it was kind of a bad year, Alex and I both were able to pull off our first wins at the same year. As a sister, that was really amazing to see. Like, Alex doesn't get emotional very much, and he definitely had tears going. So that was definitely amazing to see. He was the first one to win. Um, but just seeing all of our hard work as a family here pay off finally, that
Hmm.
was a awesome memory.
And where did he win his race?
Kalamazoo Speedway.
And how about you? Is that where you won your race?
I was up at Springport
Springport.
this year.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, great memories, right? That you'll always have for sure. And like I said, I know the two of you are pretty close, and so that makes it even better for sure. Um, so social media, I mean, we can't live without it, can we?
No.
Sometimes we should live without it. But I know you use it for your embroidery business, and that's a great way to use it. But what about racing? Is it Do you have your own page? You and Alex are together. How do you use social media? What kind of platforms do you use, and how could we find you and follow you to see where you're racing and how your results were?
Yeah, so me and Alex have a combined racing page. It's called Sexton Motorsports. It's easier to just do both of us at the same time.
Hmm.
I'm the main one that runs that. We've been getting a lot more stuff on our social media lately. I try to update it as much as I can. We're definitely trying to get our sponsors a lot of spotlight on that now. That's definitely important because they support you, so you need to support them as well.
Right. Do you want to share about your sponsors?
Yeah, so the biggest one I need to shout out is Steve Wright over at TNT Promotions. We had a falling out a few years ago, and he picked me back up. And in the past 2 years, we've really worked well together as a team. He's always there to support us. He comes and watches us. He does a lot of our promotion work for us. So he's putting in the hard work to do that. But we're putting in the hard work on the track to
Yeah.
show all that stuff. One of my biggest sponsors that's been with me since the very beginning is Mattress Mart. I have Best Damn Gummies, Tom's Meat Market, um, South Haven Packaging, the Navy, um, BC Pizza, Plainwell. They've been with us for a very long time, and that owner, he's pretty sweet. He's into cars just like us, so it's really easy to go there and support them.
Yeah.
I have Bob and K's is new this year,
Oh,
so
good.
that's cool. I have McGonagall's. I have um, Metzger's Heating and Cooling,
Hmm.
and I think we have a few open spots this year still, maybe like
Okay.
one or two. But other than that, all of our hard work has been able to show
Yeah.
sponsorship wise. So
Yeah. And it's not easy
it
to
is
get
not.
sponsors. Because when
Not
you
at
think
all.
about how many drivers there are within, let's say, even a 60-mile radius of Kalamazoo, there are a lot of them. And so, to be able to have that many sponsors, Taylor, and then I know Alex has got a good number as well. Um, that's not easy, and to have new sponsors come on board, and things with the I mean, face it, the people just don't sponsor like they used to.
Mhm.
So that says a lot about you and your race team, that that they want to be a partner with you and have you support them as well. So I love that because man, it's hard
It
and
is.
it's expensive. A set of tires is about what, $800.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a set of tires is 800. Hopefully you can run them more than one night. Pit passes are 30 or more a piece, and you got 4 or 5 people. We're talking several $100s, if not thousands, to
Yeah.
race at a local track. And if you win the race, it might not even cover that. And so
Yeah.
we definitely do it because we love it, um, not because we're making money at it, or not because it's an occupation. It's not. It's a passion. And
Absolutely.
yeah. And so Facebook, Sexton Racing, and we'll be able to find you there, you and Alex.
Yep.
Do you have Instagram or anywhere else that we could follow you?
I think we have an Instagram page, but I don't mainly post there. I need
Okay.
to link those two together, but mainly
All
is
right.
going to be Facebook.
Mainly Facebook. So follow the Sexton kids. I still call you kids. You're still kids. Um, follow them on Facebook and follow Taylor with her embroidery. I highly encourage you to reach out to her if you need shirts done or jackets, or you can do all kinds of stuff with embroidery. I owned an embroidery business, Taylor, many years ago, back when it was probably a newer thing. And wow, the things you can do now are so much better than the things we did back then. So I encourage you to reach out to Taylor and get out to one of the local tracks. Whether if you live in Kalamazoo, we have great tracks within. I always tell people I'm so spoiled. I could draw a circle from where I live in a 60-mile radius, and I could go to about 6 or 8 or more tracks.
Yes.
And some people I know, Taylor, drive hours to go to a track. So we are spoiled because we have Kalamazoo, we have Galesburg, we have Berlin, we have, just, we could keep going. Springport, love Springport. I always feel like it's out in the middle of nowhere, and it really is. And it's really not that far. It just feels like it's far.
Absolutely.
But I do love Springport. And
Me
so,
too.
I know Maddie likes going there too. I think it's just a fun track. So, get out and support these kids that are racing, and anybody. If you don't have a favorite driver, go and watch a few times, and then ask one of those drivers if you can go in the pits with them some night. Because Taylor, they would learn a lot, wouldn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Taylor gets to the racetrack probably about noon, or well, on a Friday, maybe not, but early
Yes.
on a Friday. There are people that get there at noon, but
Yeah, my trailer is normally the very first one in line because my dad likes to be the very first person at every
yeah,
single place we go. So,
there you go. So, um, yeah, it's so fun, but you just don't realize the hours and the time and the money that is put in to a local team like you guys, to entertain those of us that come to watch. And people take it for granted. They don't really understand the whole situation. So I encourage you to, hey, reach out and ask Taylor if you can pit one night with her, and watch and see what happens on a regular race night. It's pretty interesting. Yeah, for sure. Taylor, is there anything I haven't asked you about or we haven't talked about that you want to share?
I don't think so. I definitely, before I get off of this, I really do need to say a big thank you to my parents for allowing us to do all this. Without them, we would not be able to continue to do this every single week. They put in a lot for us kids to be able to go out on that racetrack every single week. You'll see my mom in the tire barns. She tries, even if we're traveling, she tries to do something. Like half the time, I don't even know where she's at. We've went to Plymouth 2 or 3 times with Alex, and she always finds herself in the tire barns. So,
Uh-huh.
um, they're definitely the most hardworking people, and they're gonna do anything they can to get us kids out on that track. And I can't
Yeah.
be more thankful.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. Got to support. They support their kids, and that's, you're a race family. That's what you do. Like you said, this is your life. And so that's a good thing because it makes lots of good memories for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, Taylor, thanks for being on with me. I know you've worked all day and came home and did this. So take a break, have some dinner, and get busy embroidering those jobs. And
Yes.
hopefully we'll get some new ones sent your way.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me today.
Oh, thanks, Taylor. Just stick around. That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.